Let's try writing a simple function in Python. To do this, I've split my screen into two parts. At the top I have my interactive mode, and at the bottom I have my editor mode. I've chosen to write the function in the editor because functions that involve more than 2 or 3 lines are just easier to deal with in the editor mode. Let's first define the name of the function, and we're going to call this intersect. There are 2 input arguments to the intersect function. There are 2 sequences that I'm going to call S1 and S2. The first thing we need to decide is how are we going to keep track of the results that our intersect function generates. I'm going to do that in a list, which I'm going to call res, and I've just created res as an empty list. What I have to do next is the following. I need to loop over all of the members of my sequence S1. For any single member in that sequence, I need to ask, is this object also a member of the sequence S2? If the answer is true, then we would like to retain that list in our result. Let's do this piece by piece. The first step is looping over all of the objects in my list S1. We can do that simply by saying for x in S1, this is our first loop. Then we would like to ask, is x also a member of S2? To do that, we can test for membership. We can ask if x is in S2. Now we know that element x is both in S1 and S2. That means that it belongs to the intersection of these 2 lists, and therefore we should capture this result. We do that by appending that result to our res list, and we're done. The only remaining step is to return the list res to whoever is calling this function. Let's then try running this function. I'm going to run this. You can see that Python didn't complain, so at least in terms of syntax, things look okay. Let's call this function. Let's ask what is the intersection of 2 lists. Let's say my first list contains the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and my second one contains the numbers 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Python tells me that the intersection of these 2 lists is another list which contains the elements 3, 4, and 5. Let's then try out a second example. Let's try to generate a simple program that generates passwords. For this function, we would like to be able to specify the character set and the length of the password. We're going to call this function password, and it's going to take in just one argument. The argument is going to be the length of the password. Before proceeding with the function, let's think about what module, if any, we may need to import. It seems that in this case, we would like to be able to choose characters from a sequence of characters. This suggests to me that the module random might be handy. Remember how random has a method choice, which enables me to choose one object at random from the sequence that you provide as the argument. So one possibility is you can choose numbers from a list. Another thing that we can do is we can actually provide a string, let's say A, B, C, D, E, F, and we can ask Python to return one of these characters at a time. This is going to be the basis for building our function. Let's now go back to our password function. The first thing we want to define is an empty password. We're going to build this password as a string. I'm just going to use PW for this, and I can create an empty string by typing str followed by parentheses. The next step is going to be defining the set of characters that will be used as the basis of my password. I'm just going to call that characters. And initially, let me just define that as A, B, C, D, E, and F. And we can later extend this list as need be. What I'd like to be able to do next is to pick one of these characters uniformly at random. For this I need the random.choice method. If I type random.choice and place the argument characters inside the parentheses, I know that this will return one of the characters chosen at random. What I would like to be able to do is repeat this process multiple times. So I would like to be able to sample characters at random one at a time and then construct my password one letter at a time. Let's see if we can do this in a for loop. We know that we will be repeating this process precisely length times, so for loop as opposed to a while loop seems to be the better tool here. We can type for I in range length, which creates a range object that consists of length number of members. Let's see what we can do next. Right now we're looping over our range object and we're picking characters one at a time uniformly at random. This is a good starting point, but so far we're not storing our randomly chosen characters anywhere. Remember that if we have two strings, say A and B, we can concatenate these two strings by putting in a plus sign in between them. This suggests that I could take my existing password PW and define my new password as the current password with one extra character added to the end. So let's see what's happening here. We've created an empty password. We've established a set of characters that we want to use as the basis for our password. We're then looping over a line of code exactly length number of times. Each time we're choosing one character uniformly at random from our list called characters. In addition to picking that character, we append or concatenate that newly chosen character to our existing password. Once the for loop concludes, we have our password. The only thing that we still have to do is return that password to the caller of the function. We do that by typing return password. Let's now try running this function in the interactive mode. I can call this function by typing password, and perhaps initially I would like to have a password of length 4. In this case, Python returns the password CFAC. I can try this again, and I seem to be getting a new password. If I ask for a longer password, perhaps one with 10 characters, the code appears to be working correctly. However, if we go back to our set of characters, we only sample the letters from the string A, B, C, D, F. Let's now add a few more characters to our character set. We've now redefined our character set. The next thing I want to do is I need to rerun this function. Remember, if I don't rerun the function, Python will not implement any of the changes that I've typed in the editor. We can now try calling the password function again. Let's start with a short password, maybe with just 5 characters. And you can see that Python is now randomly choosing characters from the entire set of alphabets. What if we also wanted to include numbers in our set of characters? We could do that by typing the numbers 0, 1, 2, and so on right after our Z letter in the string. But we can also concatenate a new string to the end of the existing one where we type out the numbers one at a time. We can now try rerunning the function. Let's try calling it. In this case, Python is including both characters and letters in our password. If we want to be really secure, we could generate a much longer password, say one with 50 characters. This is how you generate random passwords using Python functions.